Hi. Professor Dragica is here. Can you hear me? The Una is there. Yeah. Safeful. Please don't sleep. Yes. Please don't lie, and please don't lie in the bed, and please do not sleep. And behave like a student in the classroom, please. Okay. So,
this meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
So, hi. Thank you. Thank you for joining. I see the others are not, have not been in the classroom yet, either online or offline, maybe because of this difference of half an hour. I thought that it could be acceptable for you because I did not want to refuse students' plea to speak at their opening of the exhibition, photo exhibition related to student protests. So I hope that the others will join us later. I will, as I wrote, first thank you for understanding. Secondly, I will speak until 6:25. I will try to cover the first part of the lecture, conceptual analysis of gender, sex, mutual relation, and theoretical articulations related to feminist, queer, transsexual theories directly linked to these mutual relations. So that will be the first part of the lecture. The second one, as you could see if you opened PowerPoint presentation, will deal with relevant feminist concepts. And as you can see, when we come to that second part, many or most of the concepts we have already analyzed and elaborated through previous lectures, and I will mostly speak a little bit about the private-public dichotomy, also about the interrelation of multiculturalism and feminism, then about the concepts, feminist understanding and genesis of feminist understanding of prostitution and pornography, and the concept of care. So that is enough. We have been accumulating, so to say, from different perspectives, angles, everything what is relevant for this course. And I hope that you have been managing to catch the main points. So considering gender, just to check, I think recording has been going on. Just to check it once again. Okay. Dobro večer. Hi. So we are starting. Thank you for coming. Okay. So I'm starting with the first part of the lecture related to the sex concepts of gender and sex, or sex and gender. And then after the break, we will speak about relevant feminist concepts. So shortly, gender means different things. I put more explanation into the slides. Maybe that's not usual, but I always think that from that surplus, you do not have any harm. And I will just touch upon the most relevant things. So gender, the category gender means different things in natural sciences, biology, medical sciences, etc. And in the linguistics also, it means human gender. So the common properties of the human species. Then it also means linguistically, and also in the feminist theory, male female division, and mostly in the feminist theory it means female gender within the framework of the patriarchal social roles, and then how they have been framed, formed within female-male mutual relation. But female women have been in the main focus at the beginning. And we will see how the genesis goes on. So I use some quotations, mostly from Laura Palzani. You have uploaded her book. She is good. But also there are some quotations which I will mention, or you will read them by themselves, of other relevant authors. So she says that what is crucial to understand initially gender is to place it in relation to sex, and initially into a simplified relation. In that simplified relation and definition coming from the second feminist wave, that and Simone de Beauvoir, that women are born, but they have been built upon their social constructions. So that initial differentiation says that sex denotes the biological condition of man and woman, of the male or female being, how one is born. Gender denotes the interior psychological perception of one's own identity, how one feels, and how one appears to other. And I would add to this quotation how we as individuals perceive and conceive those others within these sex gender differentiations. So how she said how one appears to others in the behavior, habits, and roles that are given and assumed by masculinity and femininity. Sex denotes how we are, the natural condition. Gender denotes how we become, the acquired condition. We will see further on and more how these differentiations have to be much or come in a sense of being complemented with a more complex approach. So here can be differentiated different interpretations of the mentioned mutual relations, biological determinism, reducing gender to sex, social constructionism that separates them, as we mentioned, and deconstructionism that thematizes the priority of gender over sex and also leads towards pluralization of both of them. So, as I said, all the feminist interpretations point to biological determinism as well as to social constructionism. But we will see how the third wave feminisms change the understanding of these concepts and categories. But what is also important to say that even independently from feminist streams or particular points of view, the situation becomes different in understanding this constructionism of sex-gender interrelations due to the technological advancements which enable women to get so this reproduction technology advancement, which enables women to be much more independent from the pre-given or socially constructed patriarchal roles, to be independent from men. And how this author Palzani says, this second sexual revolution transforms sex into politics, new sexual politics, which tends towards and enables replacing the reproduction as the relation of power, which we mentioned previously, subordination of women, dependence from men. So those are relations of power directly also related to the reproduction process. So this reproduction process and women have become, due to the technology, released of this dependence. And we can speak about freeing reproductive function of women from men. So paradoxically, it comes that not thanking to gender equality advanced bigger progress in freeing women from subordination, but thanking to the technological change. So that's interesting to have in mind. Also, it's interesting to have in mind, to keep in mind that psychosexology helped a lot, boosted mostly the better or more complex understanding and taking within the feminist thought more into consideration complex relations between sex, sexual orientation, and gender. And to quote, "It is no coincidence that the distinction between sex and gender was born in the sphere of psychosexology to look for a theoretical and practical answer in such difficult cases as the variability of the gender made it possible to explain identification as the gradual process of the acquisition of gender identity in correspondence or contrast with the sex, also in reference to transsexualism, or in cases of the non-correspondence between the sex and gender embodied in different sexual orientation. So this interrelation, gender, sex, sexual orientation, came on agenda within psychosexology and helped to widening insights within feminism. So to widening and going towards more complex understanding of sex. So determination of the sex refers not only to what appears at the moment of birth. Now we go further on. I mentioned that during the glossary classes, but also to the analysis of the genetic, gonadic, hormonal, morphological, and anatomic dimension with references to primary and secondary sexual characteristics. So many more things due to the expansion of knowledge. We mentioned previously due to technological reproduction advancements, so that things have to be taken more complexly into consideration. So, and she mentioned children born with genital ambiguities or sexual indeterminacy for intersex persons, discrepancy between acquired identity of some adults and their genetic sexual belonging, transsexual affiliations. So there are many more things than in a simple biological determinism versus social constructionism framework. Further on, it is in postmodern context, the gender are already previously set free from sex, what we mentioned, separates from sex more and more and multiplies itself in the differences, strictly and intentionally declined or inclined into the plural. Postmodern thought contests paradigmatic treatment of sexual binarism, opposite sexes, heterosexism, heterosexuality. We know a lot about that, and we do not need to. You can, if you want, we can discuss, but we know a lot about. So this private-public dichotomy, patriarchal, heteronormative binary approach simply have been overcome. They are something reducible, simplifying, and something to have to be complemented significantly with more complex knowledge. Then, emerging of intersectionality approach, gender becomes a category next to that of race, class, and ethnic group. We know a lot about that also. And then what we mentioned about the pluralization of gender and pluralization of sex, and maybe also relativization of sexual orientation. In these pluralization trends leads parallelly to emerging of queer theories, and as I mentioned, pluralization of sex and sexual orientation. So queer theory definitely deconstructs normativity and binary identity, gender identity approach emerged in the early 1990s as a response to limitations within traditional gay and lesbian studies, because they started from the binary and then tried to make the differentiation, but that was not sufficient. It draws heavily on post-structuralist thinkers such as Michel Foucault and Judith Butler. The central premise of queer theory is the critique of heteronormativity, which refers to the institutionalized assumptions that heterosexuality is the natural or default mode of human sexuality, and all the other eventual appearance or phenomena are exceptional mutations, even illness, a matter of a medical issue, or a matter of illness in medical terms. So as I said, pluralization and relativization of the concept of gender, sex, sexual orientation leads towards queer articulation, queering, making flexible all these concepts. Later, we will see that there are also eventual limits of this queering or too much relativizing, at least in some interpretations. And we will try to explain the arguments in that respect. So sexuality is not the natural given. Sexuality is also social construct. Concept of sexual orientation comes into focus and also is pluralized. And as we obviously see, queer theory advocates for a radical thinking of sexual and gender identities from the point of ambiguity, fluidity, and dissenting from dominant norms and mainstream feminist initial understandings. So identities, sexual, gender, sexual orientations are fluid, performative, as Judith Butler says. Initially, queer and feminist theories have been put in opposition to each other by assigning them different objects, proper objects of study, gender being the proper object for feminism and sexuality for queer studies. And they have been distinguished from each other not only in connection to the question of stable identities attached to feminist understanding and fluid in another case, but also as having a different understanding of the meaning and manifestations of sexuality. We can understand it from previously said what it means. Please interrupt me if you want to add something. So, however, an increased problematizing of the interconnectedness and separations between the category, interconnectedness between the categories of sexuality and gender has made feminism more open to the problematics of sexuality and also the queer theory pays much more attention to the concept of gender with the time passing and some kind of matching or merging or better mutual understanding between these different streams or fusing has been going on. So when the task of feminist theory shifted from studying women to studying gender as a set of relations, gay and lesbian studies analogously moved from tracing historically stable identities based on object choice to defining queerness in relation to sexual norms. These parallel shifts have created intersections between queer and feminist scholars who share gender and sexuality as object of analysis. Does anybody want to give some comment, context to this understanding of their mutual, because there are also evidently conflicts, still conflicts among particular feminist organizations, movements, and queer ones, or even maybe between gay, lesbian in more traditional sense and the queer, those with queer approach. Does anybody want to say something? No? Colleagues online? Okay, so queer provocativeness, eventual limits, just to have it in mind. So post-gender queer theories exalt sexual polymorphism that is extremely provocative. And this quotation gives, how to say, a more understandable explanation of this provocativeness. So I quote, "The relationships of men with men, women with women, also more than two, of transsexual and transgender persons with each other are considered equivalent. So this is an interpretation of Laura Palzani. Maybe she adds to this provocativeness, maybe not. Maybe I do not know enough. But we have to have this in consideration. I go on with the quotation. Everything becomes indistinct and indistinguishable. Every attempt to make a distinction is seen and rejected as being suffocating, oppressive, and repressive. The gender category is substituted with queer to denote how the diversity must not be considered strangeness, but must be considered normalcy or normality, cancelling any distinction between normal and abnormal by the very denial of every diversity, instead normalizing abnormality. So this quotation sharpens, maybe exaggerates, but sharpens provocativeness, and let us talk about. Dušica?
Here are considered equivalent to what? Equivalent within the relationship? The first.
All are equivalent.
The heterosexual.
Equivalent, all combinations, also including between men and women, more men and more women, heteronormative but plural. That is how I understand. Do you understand? And so all are at equal footing.
I need to think about this.
Okay, so this provocativeness provocates you, and what about the others? So due to the mentioned extreme due to the mentioned extreme provocativeness of these mentioned equal footing presentation of different combinations in sex, gender, sexual orientation, mutual relation, Palzani opens the question whether this extreme provocativeness moves too far the pluralization within the gender and sex discourse. So have this in mind. It's important to have it in mind. So she says, and we also, I think, should say that the initial question of the feminist discourse, what is gender, cannot be avoided fully. So she puts a few questions. So she puts also that cannot be avoided with the question mark. But then through my further argumentation, we will try to explain why it should not or could not be avoided without this question mark. So there are the questions posed. Is sexual preference equivalent at the social level? Each sexual preference equivalent at the social level? Is the hetero-homo bisexual choice indifferent? So no difference, no point of differentiation. So we came, Jelena came into the classroom, and just to include her into the point of the discussion. So we spoke about the queer pluralization and flexibilization to the extreme of the concepts of gender, sex, sexual orientation, and any combinations of mutual relations based on these characteristics. And then the question came unavoidably, does this push too far does this kind of pluralization pushes too far? Does it disables feminist and queer and trans feminist thought, disabled to discuss some relevant questions which go beyond or out of this maximum plurality. There are some questions, and we will see that there are. So her questions are: is the hetero-homo bisexual choice indifferent? What is the meaning of diversity at individual level, and what are the implications in interpersonal relations? What is the source of individual and relational diversity? Is that biology, culture, or individual will? And she says the question, what is gender, cannot be avoided. And I would agree, and I will give her arguments and some of mine. She says that it can now be understood why the answer to this question cannot be naive, that it's not just some bypassing question and the response, because the response to this question, what gender is, defines many other relevant ideas. Quotation: it is an attitude that has significant implications on the way of understanding the body, subjectivity, identity, on the way of understanding rationality, family, and society. So all these very relevant concepts have been affected with this or that, most extreme, less extreme, some better balanced understanding. And just not to forget what I wanted to mention, but it came out of my mind at that moment. Let us not forget, I will mention it later, that feminist intersectionality approach widely and deeply adopts the position of non-binary and also of the pluralization and diversity. So it's not something what belongs only to queer, especially this to the extreme provocativeness led understanding. So some kind of simple summing up my additional understandings. Overcoming the binary paradigm, overcoming exclusivity, normalization, naturalization, standardization, mainstreaming of bisexual relations, leaving aside the dogma of heteronormativity, are very positive results, both of queer and feminisms, but this time we speak about queering. Relativization, pluralization of gender is necessary due to the needs and requirements of the real life, in which do exist also homosexual, bisexual, transsexual, intersex persons, and due to the need for acknowledging free choice of sexual orientation. So that's another summing up, legitimate. Third, however, pluralization of this extreme provocativeness meaning brought up to the extreme might be counterproductive for the main feminist aim to combat multiple gender-based discrimination. To combat multiple gender discrimination, but starting first from the initial patriarchal cause and roots of gender-based discrimination. So that's, I don't know why I did not mention in this summing up. So that's prior to this, what I mentioned, because too much relativization of gender in this scope leaves us without tools to struggle against the basic patriarchal roots of gender imbalances and power relations within different gender, starting from female, male, and then extending that to non-binary as well. Again, relevant is this patriarchal initial root, and also intersectionally understood multiple roots of multiple gender-based discrimination. So I think that's the strongest argument. Without this, how to say, basic axis, I think we are losing the axis of discourse and the axis of theoretical axis and also the practical ones, which instructs us basically concerning the struggle. Because as we know, as we mentioned 10 times, feminist approach always is activist approach. It's not only, it is what ought to be done, it has to be done. So that's it. I think, so please comment this argumentation, and you online and you here in person, or think about, and then we can discuss it. We have enough time because I'm rather, I think, efficient, and we'll manage to say everything what is relevant. So, and now mutual synergies and mutual, now I'm not speaking about factual merging, but about conceptual synergies between intersectionality feminist approach and queer theories. Both of them dismantle, contest, put into question, deconstruct those universalizing concepts and tendencies within feminism and within political theories. And we spoke a lot about that. So nothing should be understood as universally valid. Gender or sex, or so it has to be diversified theoretically, conceptually, politically, etc., and considered in a more in a deeper manner, not in these simplifications. You remember that we mentioned that for political theories, human rights are universally valid. Oh, they are not. In the feminist, liberal, white, middle class women's feminist streams, women are universal. Women that does not exist. So also because women, there are different women from different class, race, different patriarchal heredity, etc., and so queer also does this flexibilization and pluralization, and they are there together. Queer theory's anti-essentialist stance complements intersectionality's focus on the complexity and contingency of identity formations. And as to mention, intersectionality even more must not be reduced to identity formations, identitarian politics, because always again we have to have this background of power relations and activist approach that those power relations have first to be understood and then struggled against. So their convergence enables a more nuanced analysis of how identities are constructed and how power operates across multiple intersected axes. So this intersectional approach is also very important for queer understandings, because also queer in a queer way understood sex or gender or sexual orientation has to be put into the intersectionality context again, because there are no universal understandings. Always they are, how to say, formed within particular black women, black queer person, or rich or poor or older, etc., etc. So that's very important. Internal controversies of the queer theories. Now I come to those internal limits. First, I spoke feminism, queer, mutual merging, then controversies, synergies, and now then limits of queer theories with this overemphasized deconstruction of gender, because then, as I said, we lose analytical tool for understanding patriarchal basis of discrimination and multiple bases of discrimination. So we have to have some line for understanding and acting. But then now we come to something also very simple and very convincing. What, for example, before reading about this and thinking afterwards, I did not have this in mind. This is so what's going on? So trans feminism or trans sexuality studies started being developed a little bit with a distance and independently from queer theories because of some problems. The problem is that too much fluidization of these categories does not fit to the needs of transgender persons. They want to define themselves, to get an identity which is different from one from which they started.
You think only transgender, not non-binary or...
Now I speak, so within not a non-binary, and there you have queering of identities, queering also gay, lesbian, but intersex and trans-sex persons, because they do not want to stay, to keep on being gay or lesbian. They want to change their sex, their identity.
I understand why there was a distinction there, because the sexual orientation and gender identity, those are different terms.
Yeah.
And
but please come back to the notion transgender persons. They do not want to have fluid identity. They want to change their identity. They want medically to change. They want to be recognized as such.
Yes.
That is how I understand this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that I'm not wrong.
no, there is a difference
Because somebody wants to stay, to be gay, but to be recognized, to be openly that, not to be demonized or sanctioned, but there are persons who want to change their sexual and gender identity. Think about it. Just let what you don't agree upon.
I agree.
Isn't there any difference?
It is a difference between the gender identity and sexual orientation.
No, we go further from that.
But for example, there are many trans women who were before understanding their gender as a trans woman, they were straight. They were only with women, and after transition, they continue
medical transition,
social transition.
But she does not want to be queer. She wants to be
now lesbian.
Yeah.
With now her.
So this cannot be applied to all transgender. But let us follow this argumentation and come back to these arguments. This is also important. But for some definitely is important not to be lesbian, but to be, if not anymore female, but male.
Yeah, but different than sexual orientation.
We are now not speaking about
Yeah,
sexual
yeah, yeah.
orientation.
It's overlap. It's overlap.
Yes. So please, Butler's early work on gender fluidity was critiqued by some trans scholars and activists for its lack of engagement with the material and embodied experiences of trans individuals, particularly those who seek particularly those. So it's not to be generalized, obviously, particularly those who seek gender affirmation through medical or surgical means. And I thought also in legal terms, and so not to become gay or lesbian.
No, but this is gender fluid. So
That would be gender fluid. They do not want to come into this box of fluidity. They want to be more defined. So let us think about. And for example, I don't know how to pronounce her surname. I don't know. Namaste argues that queer theory's deconstructive emphasis on fluidity and discursive construction can render transsexual subjectivities invisible, especially those that do not conform to a postmodern and anti-normative ideal. So they want to be more traditional in a new context, in a new medical transformative context. They do not want to be performative, they want to be transformed. So this critique highlights a fundamental tension. While queer theory resists stable categories and embraces non-normativity, trans people, or let's say some, at least, to have this, how to say,
I understand.
yes, trans people often negotiate, she does not say always, but often negotiate complex relationships with normative institutions, such as the medical system or legal frameworks, in order to affirm their identities. So what I said previously here is also very clearly said. They passed through transformation, and now they want to be put into the box. Please.
Because my understanding of queer theory is a comfortable theory because it is broad enough for everyone to fit in. But I understand the position here that the broad enough excludes the people who
make some invisible.
Yeah.
Maybe that's 0.1%, but there is some possibility in principle.
I understand that why it can be invisible to others. I understand.
And they want to be visible as defined. That's the point. Jana?
I will share later.
Please.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I will. So
On the break.
okay, not on the break. I go to speak to students. I have to concentrate. You don't know that. Are you so? Just a second. Okay, I will explain. You know, I have to switch my mind, my everything into the talk at an opening ceremony for the students' protest photos exhibition. So do not count on me as relaxed during the break. Use this opportunity. So I'm looking. That's why I'm looking at. So transsexuality raises crucial questions about embodiment, the politics of recognition, and the limits of anti-essentialist thinking within queer discourse. Those who do not want to be invisible, to be left aside and become invisible. So, as I said, they put into question certain aspects of queer flexibility. So they think those from transsexual studies and persons belonging there transsexuality cannot be reduced to performativity alone that queer approach implies. It involves questions of agency, recognition, embodiment, and survival in a world structured by binary gender norms and institutional gatekeeping. Moreover, queer theory's emphasis on gender as play or performance can obscure the real material consequences of transphobia and systemic violence, particularly for trans women of color, trans sex workers, and others, and at the intersections of multiple forms of marginalization. So that is how to say, we have a time, 5 minutes for a discussion of these very, I think, relevant questions. Overcoming binary, opening for non-binary, one step. Then opening for queering approach, and then coming back to the question whether somewhere there are limits which should not be gone beyond, and concerning patriarchal matrix and the struggle against gender inequality, that not to become invisible as well, now to use this metaphoric language, and limits coming from those trans persons who do not want to fall aside and become invisible as well. So does this, what are your, how to say, feedback ideas about these genesis of the concept of gender, sex, sexual orientation? What is for you personally the reasonable amount of making discourse more open, flexible, inclusive? That's very important. Discourse to be as most exclusive as possible. So where do you see your understanding and contrasting it with these explanations which I gave? Online participants and Dušica and Jelena. Što sam opet spremna? Sorry, this is too much.
That's fine.
Never again. No, never again, believe me. And first of all, yes, and this social construct speaks nothing bad about myself, but it drives me crazy anyway, because I'm the person who wants to memorize everything correctly, but maybe too many things going on. And I came in line with your name, but again today with this mismatch of my obligations. So to explain, Jelena, students yesterday asked me, they started at 6 o'clock. First they informed me this morning. No, first they told me that it will be at 6 o'clock. Then I said, okay, I will give the first part of the lecture until, I don't know, 45 minutes, and then I will break. And then this morning they informed me that they will start at 6:30. I said, okay, then I wrote email. But then they called me again that some of the professors let them enter Amphitheater 5 earlier at 6 o'clock, and that I will be on board at 6:30. So I have to consider. So that's the story, because students are organizing that exhibition, and you can go through the halls. It really is good, very well done. And I went with them those 80 kilometers on foot. And I have been all the time with them on 16 minutes of silence, but I'm always not exposing myself. I'm there, but always there, but somewhere behind. But then they asked me, what? No, first I was invited to get a medal for my 80 kilometers walking. And then they all again invited me to speak today, and I could not refuse that. Yeah. So this is the compromise which I made.
Finishing then the class at 6:30, or is somebody else?
No. I'm coming back. You did not read my email. So okay. So do you have some questions? Una?
No, everything is clear.
Dolazim. Dobro, dolazim. Dobro. Može, evo dolazim. Prijatno. I will stop recording and we will come back. We will start again. I don't know what I responded. So we will start again in half an hour. So take rest. Dušanka, dolazi ne mogu se da nađem gde je ono da stopiram recording ovde.
Da. Možda da idete.
Ajde.
Zaprikadili se ovde sve. YouTube.
আমার কেমন আছো? এই ক্লাস নিয়ে ব্যস্ত আছি, প্যারায় আছি। কোনো আপডেট নাই আমার কাছে, এই জন্য আমি কি বলবো, এই জন্য কিছু বলতেছি না। রিজেক্ট হয় না যেহেতু, হওয়ার সম্ভাবনা এখনো পুরোপুরি আছে। যেহেতু যেহেতু রিজেক্ট হয় নাই, সেহেতু হওয়ার সম্ভাবনা পুরোপুরি আছে, টেনশন নেই। ঠিক আছে, টেনশন নিয়ে না, আল্লাহ ভরসা, আল্লাহ কাছে বলো। তুমি আমার বাংলাদেশ টাইম সকাল 9টার দিকে কল দিও। তুমি মাঠে কখন যাও? তখন মাঠে যাওয়ার আগে কল দিও, কথা বলবো। বিরতি, বিরতি, ব্রেক আর কি, ব্রেক। ভাইজান বলেন, কেমন আছেন? উম, আমাদের এখানে তো মাত্র সন্ধ্যা। বলেন। হ্যাঁ, কার কথা বলতেছেন? ওরা তো মানে এজেন্সি কোম্পানি সবার সঙ্গে কাজ করে আর কি, ওদের চিনি না, ওদের সাথে আমার যোগাযোগ হলো মানে অনলাইনে, আমি ওদেরকে ফিজিক্যালি চিনি না। মানে আমার ইউনিভার্সিটির এক প্রফেসরের রেফারেন্সে ওই লিঙ্ক দিচ্ছে, উনি আমাকে ওই লিঙ্কে কথা বলছে আর কি। মানে আমার ওখানকার যে মালিক, আমি বলি ওখানকার যে মালিক সে হলো আমাদের ইউনিভার্সিটি, আমার যে প্রফেসরের বান্ধবী, ওই লিঙ্কের আর কি, লিঙ্ক করছে আর কি, লিঙ্ক টু লিঙ্ক। আমি আলাপ করছিলাম, ওদেরকে মেইল করছিলেন। ভাই আমার কথা শুনেন, কথা মন দিয়ে শুনেন, দুইটা বিষয়। আপনি এই দেশে ঢুকার পর আপনি সব করতে পারবেন। ঢুকার জন্য একটা রাস্তা হলো, প্রথম আপনি যে কোম্পানি করবেন ওই কোম্পানির কাজ হলো শুধু ঢুকা ভালোভাবে, একটা সাইনবোর্ড। এরপর আপনি কি ব্যবসা করবেন না করবেন আপনার উপর ডিপেন্ড করে, এগুলো সমস্যা না। আর ওরা যে অত ভালো বোঝে এমনও না, বোঝেন না এই ব্যাপারটা, আপনার কোশ্চেন তো বোঝে নাই আর কি। শুনেন আমি বলি, আপনি কোম্পানি যদি করেন, আমি আপনাকে বলি কথা শুনেন, কোম্পানি যদি আপনি করেন সেটা সারা ওয়ার্ল্ডে একই নিয়ম। আপনি কোম্পানি যদি নবায়ন না করেন আপনার নাই, শেষ, সিম্পল, ব্যান হয়ে যাবে। একই নিয়ম, দুবাইয়ের যে নিয়ম সার্বিয়া একই নিয়ম, ইউরোপের একই নিয়ম, সেম নিয়ম, নিয়মে কোনো পার্থক্য নাই। আপনি যদি কোম্পানি করেন, আমাদের দেশে যেমন ভ্যাট প্রত্যেক মাসে ভ্যাটের চালান জমা দিতে হয়, ট্যাক্স না থাকলেও ট্যাক্স ফাইল করতে হয়, ট্যাক্স ফাইল জমা দিতে হয়, সবই করতে হবে আপনাকে এখানে। বছর বছর ট্রেড লাইসেন্স রিনিউ করতে হবে, সবই করতে হবে, বাংলাদেশে যা যা করতে হয় একটা বিজনেস চালাতে গেলে সবই এখানে করতে হবে, সেম টু সেম। বাংলাদেশে যেমন আপনি চুরি করলেন 5 টাকা কামাই লিখলে 2 টাকা কামাইছে, এসব চলবে না এখানে। 5 টাকা কামাইলে 5 টাকা হিসাব দিতে হবে, 5 টাকার উপরে ট্যাক্স আসবে, এই হলো ব্যাপার, আর কিছু না। সেটা বলেন, সেটা ওরা কি বলছে এটা ব্যাপার না, এরকম এজেন্সি শ আছে, মানে এই ধরনের এজেন্সি শ আছে, হাজার হাজার আছে এই দেশে, এটা কোনো সমস্যা না। এই ব্যস্ত থাকলে কি অন্যরা ফ্রি আছে না। আমি আপনাকে ওইটা দিচ্ছি কেন, ওরা হলো মানে একটু ভালো বুঝে আর কি, কম অন্যদের তুলনায়। মানে ওরা হলো বেশিরভাগ এখানকার যারা আছে লয়ার ইংলিশ বোঝে না, সার্বিয়ান ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ ছাড়া কথা বলতে পারে না, যারা ভালো আর কি। এই কারণে হলো আমি আপনাকে এমন একজনকে দিছি যে ইংলিশ বুঝে আর কি, আপনি যেন কথা বলে সে বুঝতে পারে, এই জন্য দিছি। আপনার বেশি একটা ধারণা পান, যাতে আপনার কনফিডেন্সটা বাড়ে আর কি। অ্যাজ এ ক্লায়েন্ট তো মনে করেন আমি তো আপনাকে ক্লায়েন্ট হিসাবে ডিল করি নাই, তাই আপনাকে আমি ওষুধ দিচ্ছি, বুঝেন নাই? ক্লায়েন্ট হিসাবে ডিল করলে আমি ওগুলো দিতাম না আপনার, কারণ ওটা আমার বিজনেস সিক্রেসি। মানে ধরেন ক্লায়েন্ট ডিল করলে আমি আপনাকে ওটা দিতাম না। আমি চিন্তা করছি আমার একটা ভাই কোম্পানি করতে চাই, করুক, এই হিসাবে আপনাকে এসব দিয়েছি আর কি।
Okay. Hi, I think I'm in time, maybe a minute or 2 minutes late, just to come back to the PowerPoint. We will speak now about relevant, some, as I said at the beginning, just to enter, share again, no? Okay, so we are here. Gender and sexuality, we spoke at the first part of the lecture. Patriarchy, dialectic of patriarchy and emancipation, we spoke a lot before. I will speak a little bit about private-public dichotomy. Then queer and trans politics, we spoke. If you have questions, comments articulated during the break, we can start with that. But first, I want to say what I will talk about. So intersectionality and multiculturalism, I will mention shortly. Pornography and prostitution, genesis of the feminist reconsideration of these phenomena is, I think, very interesting. And concept of care, transforming the concept of care into the political concept. Of course, I will mention a bit about at the last lecture, which I will have with Professor Tanasija Marinkovic the next Tuesday, about the mainstream political theories, reconsideration of the relevant political concepts from the feminist point of view. So the concept of care, maybe I will mention a little bit there as well, but it has to be mentioned within the feminist categories and concepts because, as we know, initially and mostly the concept has been related to the private sphere and what's going on with social roles and care roles of women, etc., etc. And it has to be transformed and enriched by contents which give to the concept much more relevance and political meaning within feminism and within political theories in general. So now I will ask once again whether somebody wants to give some comments on what you discussed during the break about queering of concepts of sex and gender and sexual orientation and the mutual relations of queer and feminist theories and their merging, and also limits of queer theories and mutual relations between queer and trans studies, about which I spoke a bit. So please come closer. Maybe it is useful for that they can hear you better. Sit. Come all of you closer. I feel better because here is with this desk, because of the screen, there is some kind of a distance between us, and I do not like anything what looks like ex cathedra work, but this is imposed technically. So I like when you are closer and that we are in the circle and discuss. So
yes, in my private school, out of 10 male boys.
Private school, which I don't know, you have to explain.
Elementary school.
Okay.
Like the first.
Private elementary school.
Only elementary school. In my elementary school, there were 4 or 10 boys who were at that time considered strange, but in this time and age, it is very obvious in which category it.
How old were they at the beginning? 6, 7, and now they are 8, 9, 10. What?
They were 6, 7 when we were going to school together. Now they are my age.
I did not. I did not. In your private, I thought you have the private. It was not clear. Okay, 4 of them.
Our psychology person in school thought that it was the best to put them all together in one class.
To empower each other.
To empower each other. And I was in that class.
Very interesting.
I realized that all other boys, normal boys, were, since they were exposed to that from young age, they were so much more respectful and acceptable towards all of these, maybe
different
things. So something that we all concluded from that elementary school is that education and exposure to those things since young age really makes a difference. And women, of course, were the ones who were leading the whole process of accepting those
socialization
of queer, bisexual, homosexual, and etc. That was very, very present in life. So yeah, it's really
that's a very like a social experiment, successful one, fortunately, because of this inclusion implemented. But I think that you owe us some additional factors of influence, maybe the behavior of the main teacher. The main teacher, primary school teacher, then behavior of parents, then maybe behavior of those 4 queer persons between each other, maybe the role of some of those, as you said, those other 6 male pupils, or because there is always the playing game in that kind of groups. The leading person, maybe the leading male, the leading female, maybe they got the upbringing which is inclusive. Something is missing in your story. You have to add, because in this region, in this context, in the period of maybe 10 years, how many years? Okay, I'm 20 years ago in the Balkan region, it could have been expected opposite.
From all the rest of the pupils outside of our one class. So only pupils in our class, in our class group, only we were the ones who were protecting those pupils who were in some sort of way different. The rest of the school was very violent.
But we know that pupils know to be very violent towards any pupil who maybe has the lower. That's a very cruel situation. So it is not directly or fully related to their gender, sex, sexual orientation, identity. So, but something else has to be. I'm missing. So you should. Well, what gave them the fortunate position within, and how it helped them to defend themselves from the attacks from outside of your classrooms?
Well, it was, I guess, a mix of fortunate circumstances, given that there was maybe 5, 6 of us who were mainly females who
supportive
against the violent pupils, and somehow we were the shield because they didn't want to go against us, females, and that's how I think we managed to survive the phobia.
So empathy, solidarity, inclusion, tolerance, so unavoidable.
That was something from my upbringing and childhood that I really remember regarding this stuff. One of the reasons why I decided to involve in this.
Okay, yes.
Is that school in Belgrade?
New Belgrade. And Belgrade is.
And do you know anything? And did you have relations and friendship with them later on? What has been happening? Fantastic. What does he or she or he, she, never, it doesn't matter. What does that person say?
It was.
What does they say now from this perspective, from this point of life, concerning that experience and memory?
Unfortunately, classical kind of experience that was traumatic, but having at least few people who were standing by our side to try to protect you was more than
It means a lot.
enough for them to not have as terrible experience as it would be without them. So even the slightest bit of support makes a lot.
Can you online and we all together, can we discuss a little bit more this empowerment influence of the least present, existent, supportive, inclusive approach in these kind of circumstances, situations, relations? So when you are not left alone totally, you have some point of support and for relying on. Why is that so important for the empowerment instead of complete depowering of that person? Why is that so crucial?
Have a support network with the authentic life.
But if you don't have supportive network, but you have at least one point of support, is that crucial? I think for me,
and your story, which is wonderful, I need to ask you, what about other classes? There are there are few people there, and I think I see a plus, but it's also negative side. They were put with each other in that platform. Segregation.
but they were not, I would not agree. It's not segregation because they together, empowered because of being together, are put into the normal, usual social framework. Is that ghettoization?
I think it's two-sided coin. They had each other for sure, but from the beginning they were put on in one side. From the first grade or
First grade, it was.
But idea was to make them, to empower them.
no, that's great, but that changed segregation in after during the school. But what about the others who weren't that visibly? So.
But excuse me, Dushanka, they, if I understood well, idea was successfully applied because they were very well accepted for this or that reason, and they're starting up. So educational socialization was very positive.
Yes, I'm totally
For growing up and building up personalities, not only in educational terms, but psychological. I think it's extraordinary, crucial.
In my mind, it is defined by the coin because it went well, and that's true. But what about the others who weren't seen as different and therefore put in the class that can be more empowering for them? You know, they have people who they can relate to. So what about them? And also people who need to deal with those different cases. They could respond differently. You have multiple classes where they have more Roma children, more Roma pupils, and they just hate them, therefore. And, you know, it could go
in an opposite direction.
I'm really glad that it was, you know, and you were the one.
But it's not, I think, I'm again going back to my question, what is missing in this explanation? It must be the system of values of those pedagogues, of those teachers was a decisive factor. If they emanated values of solidarity, equality, empathy, in importance of sexual gender differences for the quality of persons and their mutual relations, that's enough. Also including the Roma people, if the teacher is there to say, listen, what stupid things are you talking about? What's the difference? Who and why is the other, the enemy here?
I can agree. I think that we should have more actually people who are on the stakeholder level, are they teachers or policymakers that are more inclusive and sensitive in these issues.
Education of educators.
Yeah.
Education of educators in pedagogical terms and how to say value system terms, and also education of educators from the point of gender equality and intersectionally understood multiple gender-based discrimination is crucial. Education of educators.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something.
Somebody else wants to say something.
Yes, I heard the story in parts because I can't hear clearly.
Yelena, you wanted something. I think that I interrupted you, or you said, because I'm a little bit tired now and I can't remember. Did you say what you wanted to say?
No, but it was totally different topic when we were talking about person.
But please come back. You said that you will put that question. If you don't mind, put it.
No, it is too personal. So
okay.
Maybe when you're not recording.
Okay. No, okay. So let's go. We will not go for a long time further on, but let us just sum up what we have already spoken about private-public dichotomy. I will mention a few things and then you can add what you want. So contemporary relevant political theories or mainstream political theories like liberal democratic, Marxist, socialist, as well as contemporary theories of justice, theories of democracy, presuppose the mentioned dichotomy without bad intentions, but without full awareness. And as I spoke, the mainstream political theories nowadays, even in the context where they affirm human rights, universal equality, etc., they do not articulate and do not demonstrate enough awareness about gender substantive equality and insufficiency of formal legal equality. So formal legal equality can function within legislations and their implementation without putting into question this private-public dichotomy, liberal legacy. The whole liberal legacy is based on that. Also, the Marxist legacy has been making difference between unpaid homework and puts much more focus on an exploitation in the public, in factories, etc., etc. And this dichotomy is also linked to the binary conception of gender. So, in spite of the civilizational step forward with universal rights, human rights protection, etc., equality, you know, there are missing some essential awareness arising processes which put the focus on these much more needed factors, like as what we mentioned, education of educators, going beyond formal legal equality towards substantive legal equality in creation of laws, their interpretation, in their implementation. It also means education of judges for gender-sensitive, gender-competent approach of all legal and legal professionals and policymakers, etc., etc. Evidently, this mentioned dichotomy is rooted in the patriarchal matrix of gender roles. And as we said at some of the lectures, in the pre-modern mainstream political theories, that was self-understandable. This subordination, hierarchy, power relations, and very often open considering women as lower level. And we quoted some of grand theories names like Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, etc., etc. In the contemporary context of theories of democracy, justice theories, it still has been existent, not so openly, not so with a full awareness and a full intention, but still it is there, and that's more problematic, and that is what has to be changed. But to go back to simple explanation of some additional elements of this dichotomy, the crucial part of the mainstream understanding and implementation of the private-public dichotomy is that family and private life have been mostly linked to female persons and presuppose subordination, discrimination, devaluation of women and power hierarchies with men as power owners. The crucial for the feminist critical standpoint is that family and private life are by definition important for how the public sphere functions, and that overcoming gender inequalities or gender injustices in private sphere is not possible without overcoming gender hierarchies and domination of men over female members of families, discrimination and oppression of women within family and in the public context. We spoke about, but just a few more words, we spoke about that earlier. Radical feminists were in the second feminist stream, 1960s, 70s. That very important slogan, "Private is political," came from radical feminists, with putting the main idea and aim was to put into question this dichotomy, which reproduces in private public sphere everything what we are talking about, new old patriarchy within the dialectic of emancipation of patriarchy, etc., etc. So we are in the same vicious circle if we do not cut it with overcoming this dichotomy, besides binary approach, etc., etc. So liberal and Marxist feminists, by the time passing, gradually accepted this position that private is also public. And for example, it was rather radical and revolutionary when we mentioned what is her name, who speaks about family justice, liberal theoretician, which I from time to time I like her theory most, but I forget her name. So she, with the liberal thinker, she starts reconsidering this private-public dichotomy through the discourse about that family justice is unavoidable for achieving public justice, and that patriarchy from the family has been dispersed into the whole public life, and that this dichotomy has to be overcome. And she speaks about care, family care, and career balances. That's all counter liberal tradition. And Marxist theories also start accepting and speaking about much more about equal importance of unpaid private family work related to care, to domestic unpaid economic activities, household maintaining, etc., etc. So I remember the mainstream theoretician of justice, Philip Green, who pointed to the fact that if patriarchy has been overcome in certain families, the reproduction of patriarchal power relations has been manifested in all spheres of public life. So that even if it has been overcome in the family. But also Philip Green says at one place that even if in all public spheres, you can remember that I mentioned that, in all public spheres we have some kind of equalization, positions, career, mobilization of women, men, participation in decision making. Even everything is ideal in the public sphere, in different fields of different professions. If everything what is focused around reproduction, giving the birth, still is on the burden of female, the situation is not changed. And at the beginning, when I spoke about technology freeing reproductive technologies, freeing women from these power imbalances during and in the context of reproduction in the family, it adds something positively to this argument. But his point is, if any germs of patriarchy has been kept on in the reproductive function of mothers, women, still we have this vicious circle more or less existent. And this private-public dichotomy in the relation to patriarchal and intersexual power relations. So the feminists of the third wave underline the fact that power relations have been the foundation of patriarchal gender roles in both the private and public sphere, and that intersectional understanding of multiple power relations embedded in each gender-based discriminations has come into the focus, and also that non-binary gender relations have come into the focus, as well as intersectionally understood gender-based discrimination of non-binary people. So that discrimination also has to be intersectionally understood. Questions, comments, this is the field in which all of us can take part in the discussion and add something to the talk and presentation of these concepts. Does anybody want to add something? So at one of the first lectures, I spoke more and more in depth about right to privacy, about privacy as a matter of human rights, about intersectionally determined a lack of the fulfillment of rights to privacy for women of color, poor women, women maids, etc., or women with many kids in poor families here or there. They do not have any rights to privacy. Right to privacy understood as a right to be, that is the formulation from one of the text, right to be right to be left alone. You know, when we say leave me alone, just want to be my own. So these women do not have a right to that. And there I also spoke about how the right to privacy has been changed to be these changes and overcoming the private-public dichotomy. And I mentioned how the differentiation between right to reproductive rights being clearly and strongly articulated like as right to privacy in terms of human rights, right to abortion, deciding upon our bodies, etc., as a matter of private life. And on the other side, some dimensions of the traditional privacy have been turned out and put into the context of the matter of public concern and the matter of public law and sanctioning, that's family violence. Mm-hmm. So that cannot and must not be any more private matter, private issue. Who has been beaten? So that's not a private matter anymore. But reproductive rights has been. So that's a complex story. And then also is a complex. So any questions, comments?
It is only interesting that it has the reproductive rights and also rights to not be violated in your family, let's say that way. They are more interested in interfering with the private sphere for the reproductive rights rather than family violence.
Definitely.
So it's really just like
definitely to keeping the control.
To see what is actually published.
More questions? Okay, then multiculturalism trend in political theories from 1960s, 70s in the Western political legacy related to the rise of immigrations, related to opening the discourse of human rights and universal equality for recognition of differences, for acknowledging minority rights and different cultural groups' identities. So multiculturalism has different versions, liberal multiculturalism, which does not put everything into the box of collective group identities, but also focuses on individuals within the groups and their right to voice and decision making, and communitarian, very collectivist approaches. But anyway, this or that version of multiculturalism, less liberal multiculturalism than the communitarian collectivist one, which rigidly stands on the position of collectivities as homogeneous cultural collectivities. So both versions have been in a certain collision or often come into the collision with the feminist thinking and feminist understanding of gender-based and multiple discrimination. The big difference is, as I say here, and I will read later, but what I want to say, focus of multiculturalism is on ethnocultural groups and a recognition of differences, ethnocultural differences. And in the case of feminism, the struggle is for the recognition of those who are subordinated based on gender, sex, sexual orientation. That's a big difference. So those women or non-binary persons can belong to this or that cultural groups. In that case, to their discrimination easily can be added this ethnocultural and class and race roots of discrimination. And what is most important, when multiple discrimination also based on ethnocultural features or belonging of certain binary or non-binary, female or non-binary LGBT persons, is that their gender-based discrimination has to be understood out of the frame of this ethnocultural, multiculturalist defending and struggling for the recognition of ethnocultural identities, from the point of view that what has to be in focus is whether that culture, that collectivity leaves any space to the individual of that collectivity and to his or her right to voice or not. So that's the main cleavage between multiculturalism and feminism. And Moller-O'Keefe remarks that the third. So I wanted to mention Susan Moller-O'Keefe as the liberal feminist, and also he has very good analysis of interrelation of feminism. And for private public, for family justice, she's fantastic book. I will upload that. I have PDF, but also she's good in this analysis of interrelation of multiculturalism and feminism. And she gives a very interesting genesis of this interrelation. She says that the third world feminists and some Western academics had refrained in 1980s, starting already with 1970s, they refrained from the critique of these cultural homogeneous practices that had oppressed women in many parts of the world. So not only the third world feminists, but some Western feminists as well, and academics had an uncritical acknowledging the trends of multiculturalism and identitarian politics. And with the time passing, and then when it happened that some feminists from the West criticized sharply and strongly these trends, they were considered as cultural imperialists. But with the time passing, also the third world feminists and the rest of those uncritically oriented Western feminists realized that this cultural homogeneous approach to unities, entities in which gender position of women has been on agenda is not good, is not feminist, is not productive for defending, for struggling against gender-based discrimination. And she said, just a sentence, so the change happened. Western feminists had started heavily criticizing feminist identitarian politics and used to be blamed by the proponents of an identity politics among the third world feminists as cultural imperialists. I said it. The change happened, as said above, and the third world feminists of recent decades no more identify each critique of the oppression within their own culture as the cultural imperialism. That's very important. And they converge in that respect with feminists from the first world, because they start defending themselves from gender-based discrimination within their cultural entities. Cultural excuses for women's oppression have also not been acceptable anymore, and it was articulated very well and has been affirmed up to nowadays, but was also articulated in Beijing conference in 1995. But there was the period really between 70s and 90s with a huge confusion. It was cool to defend recognition, right to differences and recognition of cultural differences, but then the critical distance towards these two homogeneous recognition of cultural differences is not good for the feminist point of view. So the point of collision between multiculturalism and feminism is the fact that many multiculturalist theories that defend collective cultural rights do act in favor of keeping on the control over women, reproducing devaluation of women, heteronormative relations, domination of men over women, the patriarchy. And I mentioned the difference between liberal multiculturalism and communitarianism. Communitarian arguments for collective rights are especially dangerous for rights of women and LGBT people. And quotation, in many cases, the realm of law that religious or cultural minorities are most concerned to control is personal life, the laws of marriage, divorce, child custody, division and control of family property, and inheritance. So that's so obvious. In other words, most cultures have as their principal aims to control the control of women by men. And now, so we can discuss this. This is really important. It's very important to acknowledge right to differences, but then to differentiate what should be acknowledged fully as the right to difference, but what should not, from the point of how implies and contributes to the patriarchal reproduction of relations and subordination of women through controlling her through all those spheres of family law, divorce, custody, property, etc., etc. So that's really important point. Questions, comments, colleagues? It seems like as that you are not there. Okay, pornography and prostitution. Also very, very interesting topic. So first, second wave feminist streams. First articulation of the approach towards pornography and prostitution was universalizing and moralizing with sharp critique of those activities as humiliating, improper, etc., etc. And they were also so paradigmatic. Just a second, was often framed paradigmatic. This kind of critique and moralizing approach was articulated within a radical feminist paradigm that viewed pornography and prostitution as inherently exploitative and symptomatic of patriarchal domination. So we cannot say that that's not so, but the whole truth is not there. And I mentioned here some of relevant authors, which, and I remember their theories very well, and they argue that pornography objectifies and dehumanizes women, reinforce male power, and legitimize violence against women. And prostitution was commonly seen as a form of sexual slavery and manifestation of systemic male control over women's bodies, without making sufficient differentiation between prostitution as, to some extent, more or less, but essentially as the voluntary, as the personal decision. So, and differentiation with the sex trafficking and sexual slavery. So some kind of differentiation has to be done. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Una from the...
Ona da javljala se i nešto je govorila, ali kaže da mi ne treba.
Ajde, vijeme zašto. Dušanka. Just a second. Tu nešto nismo. Ne znam. Ne, sad čekaj, gde nam je ono dole što se vidi? Ne, a što se vidi, da li smo, jesmo mutovali smo bili?
Ne, mi se čujemo.
Nego? Onda ja ne znam. Please tell her to write message.
Kaže, ona je to da je do mene.
Okay. Okay. What does she want to say us? Ask her. She can write you. So changes, shift. No, somebody else wanted to say something. No? And so from this pure, how to say, heuristic, moral, from above approach to criticizing pornography and prostitution has been significantly changed for better off, I would say, for the quality of inclusive feminist approach and for the quality of intersectionality approach to all respects and dimensions of gender discrimination, including pornography and prostitution. So intersectional feminist approaches to pornography and prostitution move beyond universalist and moralistic frameworks to engage with the complexity of power, labor, embodiment, and identity. Rather than reducing sex work to a symbol of oppression or liberation, mostly oppression, intersectional feminism interrogates the specific conditions under which, so tries to understand what's going on and why it is going on. Interrogates the specific conditions under which sexual labor is practiced and represented. Queer and Black, to add to this, queer and Black feminist critiques have examined how mainstream pornography often reproduces racial and gendered hierarchies. By foregrounding race, class, migration, gender identity, and structural inequality, it opens space for more inclusive, justice-oriented responses that affirm sex workers' rights, autonomy, and humanity. So, from these guys to respect and opening for an inclusive approach to understand why and what's on agenda and what's going on with their rights, autonomy, and humanity. So human beings are there. And gender-based discrimination there is. So intersectional approaches recognize that experiences of sex work and sexual representation are profoundly shaped by race, class, gender identity, sexuality, nationality, age, ability, and global power relations. We can discuss this. This is very interesting. And these axes of difference profoundly influence not only who participates in pornography and prostitution, but also how they are perceived, regulated, and politicized. These two dimensions, with what I previously mentioned, that we have to include human being dignity, human rights, understanding why that is happening, and of course, this perspective moved beyond binary moral frameworks of exploitation versus empowerment, this kind of binary framework, and instead examines how sex work can function both as a site of economic necessity, and as a space of resistance, negotiation, and self-determination. Meaning that women or male or female or transgender who takes part in this pornography and this business have also right to be heard, their voice to be heard, to be considered as citizens who want to express, if they want, that they can and should express their resistance, take part in negotiations and self-determination of the position, to struggle for different protections of this or that. I will give you the word just to. Okay, so some authors argue that the lived realities of sex workers must be understood on their own terms, not through abstract ideological lenses. So they should not anymore be considered as the mainstream feminists accumulating from above, criticizing of those victims of exploitation and humiliation, but they have to be heard, understood in their own terms, not as victims, but as personalities with their own stories. So not through abstract moralizing ideological lenses. And in terms of pornography, intersectional analysis interrogates not only how bodies are represented, but which bodies are sexualized, fetishized, or excluded altogether. This is too much. This is too abstract. But for us, what can we sum up as the most important ideas which consider this issue from much more inclusive and intersectionality approach? So their own experience, understanding why and how that position has been entered in, then giving the right to voice and listening to those voices, and what wants to be said through those voices in terms of empowerment or protection of particular rights, etc. So can you add something or give some comments? Why is this important? And is this in your... So how this feminist more inclusive approach makes the position of persons taking part in pornography and prostitution more dignified than it used to be. And what is the interrelation of this feminist, more inclusive and more empathetical approach and the reality of the global sex trafficking as one of the most developed or most profitable economies, global businesses, global business is the best. Global businesses, not economies, global businesses. There is some other word, global, even in Serbian, I can't remember. So questions, comments?
Professor Ka.
Today's age, very, very important, but taboo topic still. But a lot of people are suffering from many consequences of either participating in some type of pornography or consuming it. And I believe it's very emotionally scarring the people in many ways. They cannot comprehend. So
and they deserve to be heard, to decide upon their image, how they are considered by the others, and what do they expect from their lives, from protection of their something.
yes.
Jelena?
No, I didn't want to say anything. I'm thinking about that.
But you have to admit that this also is a very relevant concept. And if you don't want to add anything else, one new
Professor
and
Ka,
the
I
last
want to
for
add something.
us.
I think that's
Professor Ka.
Saiful.
Yeah. I want to say one thing, add something, that is religion. Religion is missing here.
I saw it in the right.
Saiful.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So why? Tell him to. I don't know. Hi. I don't know. Please tell him to write shortly, and you will reproduce. And before that, during waiting for his.
I don't think his number. I only can. Yeah, maybe he can hear us. They can hear us, but they cannot hear because we don't hear them.
Maybe they
Let
can
us
write
come
in
back.
the-
Let us come back. Ja mislim da smo participali onda monitorovali, mi nismo.
Tu je problem.
Čekaj. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Please tell us what you wanted to say.
Actually, Professor, I want to say that everything is based on religion. One thing is missing here. There is religion. No, everything depends on religion. That Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, yes,
Depends
like this.
on.
But this is missing here. That is my concept, comments.
Everything it depends on
Religion. That's he
religion.
belongs to which religion? That's Muslim,
Religion.
Christian, like this.
Religion. But
religion, yeah, yes.
Religion. Listen, yeah, that is what I said. If some ethnocultural homogeneity has been based on religion, it does not. It does not imply that feminists should protect right to recognition of differences of different ethnocultural homogeneities without taking into consideration that those homogeneities based on religions do suppress or put women in those collectivities into subordinated position. So feminists from the third world and feminists from anywhere cannot, should not, must not acknowledge without reserves of this kind of the acknowledging the differences, cultural differences. Can you agree with that?
I agree, but I mostly focused on religion issues here.
Yes,
because it is interconnected issues.
But for example, in your community, can you or other male persons or families or colleagues or friends can you defend women, these or that particular women or women or non-binary persons from these culturally and religiously imposed norms which put them into the subordinated position or not? Did you understand me? Again,
Yes, I understand your point. Yeah,
you
I
are
understand.
About.
Yeah.
Can
understand
does
your
anybody
point.
dare, Saiful, does anybody dare to defend, to struggle for rights of female or non-binary, some gay, lesbian persons in families or school or where, from those strict, rigid religious norms which impose what patriarchal patterns? Does anybody dare? Are there? I cannot repeat again. I'm really tired. But you understood me.
Yes, I understand.
Can you share with us some thoughts coming from this, what we are talking about, and your cultural embeddedness?
I will send you a write-up on this.
Hello, Professor.
I will email you and send you a write-up.
Okay, somebody else wanted to say something.
Yeah. Do you hear me, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to ask you some additional questions. Like in Somalia, we see the sex biological male or female at birth, but gender is about strict cultural rules for men and women. For example, men are expected to provide the family and women are expected to cook, clean, or care for the children.
That's the
my question is,
the patriarchal pattern and fully.
Yes. Yeah, okay. So my question, all right, so I just want to ask you, do you agree that most of Somali gender rules come from society, not biological, like social constructionism explained in the lecture? Can you give us like an example that how these rules may change in the modern Somali society in future?
But excuse me, you can tell me, you can respond to that. You come from Somalia. How can I have to study Somalian society and culture.
Okay.
Why don't you? What do you want with this question? I do not understand you. Do you want to express your disagreement through this question, or you will expect from me something what you are also interested in to get the response to? Or you have the response which is opposite. I cannot catch the background, what's behind your question.
Okay.
I'm really happy that you start taking part, because we have to hear from you, from Somalia framework and from SAFO. We have to exchange, we have to check relevance and quality of arguments which we have been using. So you can put them into question, but you should not ask me to tell us about Somalia. Maybe I can if I sit and learn and study and think about that particularly. You are the one who has, I think, who are expected to give us ideas.
All right, I will do the next time, and I will try it.
Okay, thanks. But I'm so happy that you start taking part in the discussions, and I'm looking forward to your coming in person, because believe me, this trying to hear, to understand through this maybe old-fashioned technology. I'm critical towards the faculty governments at the moment, but this really is not easy. But I'm happy that Seiful and you are here, and I would like that you share with us disagreements or particular experience.
It's all right.
Okay.
Do you want to right now to share with my experience, or the next time? Because
if you want, no. Now it is. We are almost at the end, but from now on, I'm begging you to be very active and to always, when you read PowerPoint or when you listen to the others' discussions, to my presentation, to our talk about this, always try to add particular experience, so that for us is very important.
Thank you.
Because listen, it's very important that this articulation within feminist political and legal theories or other courses, not to be West-centric, not to be one-sided, to be enough, how to say, enough, not only diverse, enough theoretically capable of opening the space for mutual exchange of differences. Because intersectionality approach has as one of main aims to overcome West-centric or almost West racist approach to gender issues or women issues from elsewhere, because women issue has some common axis of patriarchy and multiple discrimination, but differences are huge. So whether these theoretical articulations do offer enough space for using for different experiences or not, and your contributions can be useful.
I will do next time, don't worry.
Okay, and just shortly about the concept of care, for which we know that usually and primarily has been used as a matter of private-public dichotomy, private sphere based on care, family care, for elders. Yes, for elders, for household, etc., etc. So these stereotyping and stereotyped understandings have to be overcome. Care is not just a private, so feminist approach has to elaborate that and to give convincing arguments against the above, the prior said. Care is not just a private feminine activity, but a fundamental human practice for maintaining life, requiring collective, democratic responsibility and challenging market economic focus. So fundamental human practice for maintaining life. Caring for others and the world is prior to mere production. So this attempts not to be only value statement or something normatively articulated, but as something what is there, but we have not been fully aware, care among us is crucial for the survival. Care is linked to equality and justice. This is more now normatively and politically formulated. Traditional politics ignored care and with that did harm to women and marginalized groups. Care, now again, we come to this, I should have put it together, fundamental human practice for maintaining life. So care is a universal need and essential for human existence, not just a nurturing activity. Of course, it includes also a dirty work for maintaining the life. Care should be the central value in contrast to traditional politics that centers on economics and individual rights. So why is that important that we understand how much care has been in our lives and how much crucial for our lives and sustainability and survival has been. Care in private life, care for each other in different, very, very different. And why care has been so much invisibilized and devaluated in the political discourse and also in our understanding of
that was women's work here for others, and that's why it was invisible.
But why that is not fully true? It was stereotyped, types. I can't say that in English. As the female, but at the same time, care beyond that has been everywhere. But why is that so invisibilized? Because of this, but
yeah.
So that's because it's not profitable. It is because it is challenging for market economy focus, but essentially is prior to mere production. Because if we start and try thinking more deeply, more essentially, more elementary, we will come to that. How much for each of us care of this or that kind has been crucially important. Very interesting, very important.
Make the money. It's usually a women's job. Not just a being lady.
Yes. Low paid services which resemble homework, care, and housework. Invisibilized. I used a very good. That's the process. Some kind of, I don't know how it is called, gerund in English. So care leads to redefining citizenship as managing collective care responsibilities. This not so. Yeah. Okay. There are deep-seated inequalities. This is easier to understand and important to remember. There are deep-seated inequalities in care. Gender, race, and class dictate who performs care. This is what you said. And this author, I think that author is very good. I included her article here, but there are ideas from some other her writings as well. She also mentions the concept privileged irresponsibility, meaning and having in mind those privileged individuals, male mostly, but the others also, who are privileged because they benefit from care, which is self-understandable and for which they do not have invisibilized that, do not care, do not mind, do not give any, they self-understandably treat care which they get, so they do not acknowledge responsibility for the feedback, for what they get. It's very interesting. So those who are privileged in getting care often consider care in a devaluating manner. And the politicized conceptualization, a new model of care democracy focused on a just allocation of care. Intersectionally understood gender determined care to be changed and replaced by just allocation of care. Care is not just individual, it is a societal project that requires a systemic change within institutions, schools, families, markets, in order to support equitable care. So this care democracy, or more substantial equality among citizens, which presupposes a equitable care, just allocation of care, and doing that or affirming that, implementing that in also institutions of social life, being family, work, friendship, etc., etc. So care is so essential, should have been understood as so visible. Care for care should be much more present, and this focus on responsibility for the received privilege of being cared about from somebody else, and being oriented towards fair allocation of care are some, how to say, new horizons. I would say I like this. Mm-hmm. So it's so important to understand how much that is politically, existentially relevant concept, which has been put into some ghettoized in the private sphere and stereotypized. Very, very interesting. Questions, comments? So I hope this was interesting. Many new questions for thinking about, for discussing later. Always again, it is possible. And when you feel like, as our colleague from Somalia, when you feel provoked or invited or inspired with some issue which we have been discussing, do some additional research, reconsideration, and take part. Say, I want to speak about.
Dear Professor,
Da?
I have a issue here regarding this intersectionality approach to care. That is balance care. Always balance. Care must be upper, must be lower. Always at a balanced position. For gender, to avoid gender
yes,
because men
so
and women always in balance. In case of
balance care. And so you used also very good term, balanced or equitable or fair share of care.
Yes.
Just allocation of care. I agree with you fully. But all of us have to be, how to say, aware of that, because this, what I mentioned, how she called that, privileged irresponsibility for the received care. we all maybe can remind ourselves to how we got some care without being aware how it should be it should have been much more respected and giving back returned. I think that all of us would be better people if you would think more seriously about the meaning and importance of care and fair allocation of care. You can agree with that? Yes. So Saiful, and I can't pronounce. I'm really sorry at this moment. Your name, another colleague from Somalia. Thanks a lot. And if you have any comments, you can mention them the next time. For today, I think it's enough. Thank you for being tolerant for half an hour break. Yes.
Hvala puno.
Hvala puno. See you. So on Friday, vidimo se sutra. No. We will see each other on the next Tuesday. And in between, you will have the lecture of Professor Miodrag Jovanovic and at the end of Professor Bojan Spajic. And with me, on the next Tuesday, there will be Professor Tanasije Marinkovic. All of them are very interesting, very good teachers, and I hope you will enjoy. I hope that you enjoy with me also. Yes. Okay, thanks a lot and see you again.
See you again. Okay.
Bye.
Ne znam kako se radimo. Ne, idemo na recording mode.
Da.
Tačno.
Ne. Stop recording. Bye. Ciao. Leave meeting.